Unpacking and checking. Unpacking the N1 HV hybrid inverter. Open the packing box and take out the inverter and accessories. Check the accessory. Check that if there is missing item or any distortion or impaired during transportation. Unpacking the battery module. Open the packing box and take out the battery module and accessories. Check the accessory. Check that if there is missing item or any distortion or impaired during transportation. Unpacking the BMC controller. Open the packing box and take out the BMC controller and accessories. Check the accessory. Check that if there is missing item or any distortion or impaired during transportation. Disassembly the BMC controller and bottom case. Installation tools. The hybrid system installation requires the following tools. Installation. Mounting. Put the installed base and feet along the wall and keep the distance of 20 millimeters between the wall and the base. According to the site environment, this height can be adjusted by the user. Align the marking off plate with the upper surface of the base. Mark the position of the 6 holes on the cardboard. Use the inverter wall bracket as a template to mark the position of the 4 holes. Remove the marking off plate drill holes 510 driller carefully. Make sure the holes are deep enough, at least 45 millimeters for installing, and tighten the expansion tubes. Install the expansion tubes in the holes and tighten them. Use the expansion screws in the screw package to install the battery module and the BMC controller's wall bracket. Use the expansion screws in the screw package to install the inverter's wall bracket. Installation of battery modules and BMC controller. Take out the battery module from the package. Hang the battery module on the bracket. Pull the latches on the left and right sides and put one battery module on the base. Pay attention to the direction of the module. Continue to measure to ensure the distance between the battery module and the wall is 20 millimeters. Repeat the operations for other battery modules. Put the BMC controller on top of the battery set. Install the screws. Installation of the inverter. Hang the N1 HV hybrid inverter on the wall bracket. Fix the screw. Electrical connections. Preparation. Make the battery positive cable, the red wire between the inverter and the BMC controller. Prepare the tin-plated cables with a conductor cross-section of 4 to 6 millimeters squared, AWG 10. Separating connector. Use a suitable stripping tool to strip 15 millimeters off the conductor. Carefully insert the stripped wire with twisted Litz wires all the way in the spring. The Litz wire ends have to be visible in the spring. Close the spring. Make sure that the spring is snapped. when you hear a clicking sound. Push the insert into the sleeve. Tighten the cable gland to 2 Nm. If possible, use a suitable and calibrated torque wrench, size 15. Use an open jaw wrench, size 16, to hold the connector in place. The battery positive cable has been made successfully. Use the same method to make the battery cable, the black wire between the inverter and BMC controller. Use the same method to make the battery cable, the black wire between the BMC controller and the bottom battery module. Connect the power cables. Connect the power cables between the battery modules. Connect the power cables between the battery module and the BMC controller. Connect the communication cables between the battery modules. Connect the communication cable between the battery module and the BMC controller. Connect the PE cables. Earth connection. Use the crimping pliers to strip off 7 mm of insulation from the PE wire end. Crimp pin contact by using crimping pliers. Put the pin contact with stripped cable into the corresponding crimping pliers and crimp the contact. Connect the PE wire to the inverter. PV string connections. Prepare a 2.5 to 4 mm squared PV cable and PV plugs as the figure shown. Strip off 7 mm of insulation from the PV string wire end. Insert stripped cable into pin contact and ensure all conductor strands are captured in the pin contact. Crimp pin contact by using crimping pliers. Put the pin contact with stripped cable into the corresponding crimping pliers and crimp the contact. Separate the DC connector. Insert pin contact through the cable nut to assemble into back of male or female plug. When you feel or hear a click, the pin contact assembly is seated correctly. Tighten the DC connector. Do the same way for making the PV cables. Connect the PV strings to PV input port of inverter. Before connecting the PV string, please measure the open circuit voltage of each PV string. Make sure the maximum open circuit voltage, VOC, of each PV string does not exceed the inverter input voltage Vmax under any condition. Battery connections. Connect the battery cables to the battery port of the inverter. The cables between the inverter and the BMC controller. AC output connections. Take out the AC terminal from the accessories bag. Remove the cable jacket by 40 mm and strip the wire insulation by 8 mm to 15 mm. Fully insert the conductors into the corresponding terminal and tighten the screws with a torque 0.8 Nm. Pull cables outward to check whether they are firmly installed. Assemble the housing, the terminal block, and the cable gland. Torque 4 Nm to 5 Nm. Make sure that the rib of the terminal block and the groove on the housing engage perfectly until a click is heard or felt. Do the same way for making the EPS output cable. Connect the AC output cable to grid port of inverter. Connect the EPS output cable to the EPS port of inverter. Communication interface. RS-485 port. ADD interface. USB port for firmware upgrade. BMS CAN RS-485 port. Connect the lithium battery. DRM port. Meter port. Meter connections. Connect the meter communication cable to the ADD interface of inverter. Follow below diagram to connect the smart meter. BMS connection. Connect the BMS communication cable to the inverter. Wi-Fi GPRS connection. Connect the Wi-Fi or GPRS module to inverter. Connections between inverter and BMC controller. Connect the battery power cables between the inverter and the BMC controller. Connect the BMS communication cable of inverter to the BMC controller. After all wires are connected, install the battery covers. Install the BMC controller covers. N1 HV energy storage system now is successfully installed. Start inverter. Start inverter. Turn on inverter DC switch to on position. Turn on BMC DC switch to on position and press power button. Turn on AC circuit breaker between inverter grid port and AC grid. Start inverter. Inverter is counting down and finally enters the normal state.